It's time to awaken and remember who you really are. It's time to live a life that you absolutely love. And it is time for the awakened being. Conversations to create change. Having real, transparent conversations that will change your world. And together, we can change the world. This week, my friends, on the Awakened Being Conversations to Create Change, I'm super excited that I got to sit with my dear brother, bestie, beloved of light, Mike Chang. He is a former icon in the YouTube world and as in the fitness world, as he built up six-pack abs to a massive multi-million-dollar empire, walked away from it because he was not living a life of flow and was in deep search of how to align to living in flow and the practical tools and applications to that. And he's created something actually called Flow Training Method. So we're going to deep dive and talk about following your bliss, finding flow, the ways to tap into these practical methods of working with your body. So join us for this. I'm super excited. We've also included some links in the show notes for you to be able to enjoy as well, this flow training method. And if you haven't yet, then please go to marcilock.com and grab the Ultimate Life of Having It All activation. This is there to support you in being able to utilize this every single day in creating a greater, more fantastical life. And also check out if there's any other things that will serve you and support you in whatever you're moving through and growing through and becoming right now. There's activations, meditations, there's all sorts of coachings to be able to deep dive into each aspect and area of your life. And our highest recommendation, of course, is the Best Life Tribe, where you pretty much get access to everything and you have me constantly supporting. And so super excited to be on the journey with you and to share the show with you. Enjoy. Hello, loves. This is Sundari, aka Marci Lock Mentor, the Alchemist of Light, sitting here with one of my favorite divine beings, soul companion, brother that I absolutely love, Mike Chang.
Hello, everyone.
So we're dropping into the Awakened Being show, as well as whatever show this gets to be via video as well, and just sharing some truth. And so Mike and I are in Bali, and surprise that we got to reconnect in Bali. And today we got to do some special flow training with you and with a group of high-level beings and individuals. So we felt like maybe the highest, greatest good that we could create would be to talk about flow.
Yes.
Talk about flow training and what does that entail? What is flow training? What is the journey that we've both been on? Because our journeys are like, I have so much admiration for you, my love, and so much honor. And I feel like such a resonance in what we've both been through. Yeah. So to give you guys a little bit, and you can fill in on some of the details, was it six-pack shortcuts or six-pack abs?
Oh, six-pack shortcuts. Now it's six-pack
abs.
Yeah.
So Mike has been a famous, massive YouTube fitness star and making change across the planet with training the body and being in tune with the body. And it was about 4 years ago, you walked away from it all. You walked away from it all and decided to just go into the depth of your journey of consciousness and expansion. You talked a little bit about it today, of feeling like called to like, I resonated with this so much. Oh, wait, you got to do the Zoolander voice. You got to do the Zoolander voice. What happened?
You mean there's more than love to being ridiculously, really, really, really good looking?
Yes.
And he does like the Magnum look or Ferrari, whatever it is.
Right? So you had this opening and awakening, basically, of recognizing that you had been so focused on the body and what we're trained to believe like we have to be successful, to be loved, to look a certain way, etc. And you had an opening and awakening to being like, wow, there's so much more to life and this experience than what I've been doing. And you literally walked away from it all and just dove deep for the last 4 years, nothing on your schedule, just traveling the world, diving deep into your own consciousness. And this is how your current passion of flow training evolved. And I resonate so highly with your story because, you know, from our divine friendship, I walked away from everything to do my global citizen journey, letting go of $1 million clients and retreats and masterminds and all my stuff to just be like called forth to that next level. Like there's got to be more than you build up the success. Both of us, you were making millions and totally free and successful, yet still, I would say, encapsulated in some ways, right?
Yes.
Like connected to something you had to show up. And I worked with a lot of high level leaders that would build massive businesses, but there's that fear of losing it, or there's still the structural masculine, right? This is what we experience. And so it's like, we're still enslaving ourselves.
You can't walk away from the fear. It's like when you don't have money, you fear you can't pay the bills. And then when you have money, you fear you're not going to have the money later.
And you're going to lose it, or you have to keep going. And so I came to this call forth of, how can I teach people true liberation and freedom unless I'm willing to give it to myself? Again, we know as leaders, we can only lead by leading ourselves first and to be the embodiment of it. And so I was called to like, let everything go, to allow myself to be with all of me. I used to be like, it was a journey to become with all of me and to only create from a place of my essence and what was called forth, not the former identity, validation, create this, do this, etc. And that was such a journey of surrender and letting go, to then come to a place where I didn't require anything outside of me. I didn't require the money or the programs or anything. It was just like, actually, can I be with all of myself? And then what dropped in, obviously, is the next level of what we discover and the next truths of freedom that we get that then become our passions and our purpose. Here now, obviously, the Awakened Being show was one of those creations. Your flow training method and movement is definitely one of those creations, which I'm the hugest fan of. So excited to talk about even how that evolved. And I feel like we both have similar stories in that we both were highly into the body, right? I started as a personal trainer, then became the Body Mind Mentor on TV and shifted kind of, I'd love for you to share your story on it, how I went from, mindset, realizing like, why do people sabotage the body, to like, it's the mindset, to then recognizing, the mindset is an inkling of this game. The feeling body and the feelings and our energy and all those things is so much more. And so it led me down to feelings. And then that led me to DNA activation and awakening, cleansing ourselves.
Connecting the dots and going deeper and deeper into what's really causing everything in our life. Because when someone looks at the mindset, somebody thinks it starts at the mindset. And really the mindset is an effect
of the feelings.
Of the feelings. Because the feelings is the subconscious mind. And when we look at the mind, majority of the mind is subconscious. It's like 90 to 95%. And there's more and more studies, and the information is becoming more popular. And I find that the more popular it becomes, the more people will start to be able to learn more about how their mind works. They know what to focus on when it comes to reprogramming their mind. Because ultimately, when someone looks at how they create their life, how they treat people, the thing that they first become aware of is what they're thinking, what they're thinking, the internal thoughts. And so the first thing they look at is, I'm going to change that thing that I'm thinking of. I'm going to change it, thinking this way and thinking that way. And I think we've all been down that process of trying to change our thoughts and hitting walls and keep constantly going back into old thoughts and old patterns and going, there's got to be another way that's more effective. I mean, do I really have to sit for meditation for 20-something years for this mind to finally shut off? Or are there shortcuts or there faster methods?
Well, and for clarity for everyone is what we realize is that when you just try to change the mind, you're still using an action of force. There's still an energy of, I have to change, I have to fight this thing, and so we think a new thought. This is why I call surface self-empowerment. We force ourselves to do an affirmation, to think a new thought, and your body is like, that is not fucking true. I do not believe that. So what happens is it reaffirms the limiting in your body and the feelings that are stuck in your cells and the epigenetics, your DNA, the programming, the conditioning, everything. So we just stay in a spiral. So there's the first thing that we're both really passionate about is we've gone into the depths of the feeling and understanding the body from an energy level. And you said feelings to you were foreign.
It was like, when I think about feeling, I go, okay, let me see how my muscles feel. It was that. Emotions. It was so funny when I started listing emotions. I really couldn't list much emotions. It was like happy, sad, angry, frustrated, and that was about it. I couldn't think of any other emotions because I just never even thought about myself as emotions. It was just thinking in my head, and how do I feel? Let me feel my muscles. Let me squeeze it around a little bit. And that was the depths of feelings. And now looking back, it's like, oh my God, I was operating in life without using this huge aspect of myself, because feeling and thoughts, they make up our experience of our life and everything in it. And if we aren't using our feelings, we literally are half. We're not.
I say it's like the pinky finger is like the mind. Compared to using your whole body, it's such a tiny amount. And when today I was talking about how your cells, one cell vibrating is 500,000 times more powerful than a single thought. We recognize how much more powerful you manifest what you vibrate. So whatever, that's why we can do all this trickery with the head, but when it's still in our system, we don't believe it in ourselves. We're not vibrating that level of peace, bliss, prosperity, worthiness, etc. We're just trying to cover it up and we're suppressing it. And so we're actually manifesting what we're pushing down and we're afraid of, because that is making up our entire system. It's just so much more. Yeah.
And when I look at the body, and I think a lot of times we think the body is just there to go ahead and serve the mind. The mind is in control of everything. But yet, one of the first things that we learn in marketing is that people buy based on emotions. The emotions is the way they feel. Hence,
people sabotage based on emotions. Decisions based on emotions.
And,
unconscious commitments operating, right?
If people were able to actually do what they think, like do what they really want in their mind, the world would be such a great place. But the fact is, people aren't able to execute. They're not able to take action based on what they want because their body is feeling something else that is different than what they're thinking. And that's where the whole, I don't feel like doing this, I don't feel like doing that. But yet, no, you want to do this, but you don't feel like doing that. And then somebody doesn't really look at it and put together, there's something wrong about my mind and my body. It is very, very disaligned. That's why I want something, but I don't feel like doing it.
What I love is to dive deeper into the unconscious commitments that are operating, because someone might be like, I want to express and share my gift. And yet, but I keep not doing it because deep down it's like, oh, I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of, I have fear of being seen, etc. And until that stuff is worked through as an unconscious commitment, what's in the body, then we can't align. So most people are aligned to what they have right now. And so we make goals, and less than 3% of people actually achieve their goals because they're not aligned to the new goal. They're aligned to the shit they're already creating, right? So let's drop back and let's talk about where you were operating from. What I feel like is ready to be received in our society and people are ready to hear is the new earth frequency codes, the ways of that we're designed to operate, where we've been also trained and conditioned to operate from a structural state and the masculine and the force and the strive and the to do, and we're going to think it through and we're going to plan. And that's a lot of what you were operating from, as well as myself, the more that I got to line. So maybe share with us what it looked like for you body-wise, because you and I both let go of how the body operated and worked, and in your business before, to then give yourself the freedom to move into what you've created and found with flow.
So when I was building Six Pack, what drove me was this fear of not being enough. And I felt like I was always in competition. It was this very competitive thing. And because everybody around me looked at competition as this healthy thing, I didn't think anything was wrong. And I remember the funny thing was, I remember clearly saying to people that fear of failing is what drives me. It's what fuels me. And coming from that time, I didn't think of fear as a bad thing, because I didn't really understand that fear is causing me to make these decisions, but it's a negative energy. It was going to create fearful type of events. I didn't connect the dots. I just saw it as, well, I'm going to use whatever fuel I can to accomplish what I want. And if I accomplish what I want, that is going to create happiness. And I just saw it as that. And then after that, I don't think about it anymore. It just becomes, what do I need to do to make it happen? What do I need to do to build this thing, to create this? Never thinking about the energy that I'm using behind it, the reason why I'm doing it. I just came up with a reason and I started doing it. And when I look at the way the business evolved, now looking back, it could have went so many different directions. The opportunities that I didn't look at because of fear, because I was so fixated on a goal versus letting go of the goal and actually allowing the process to unfold and just focusing more on my passion, which is fitness and helping people. But instead,
what if we break that down first so people see the difference between the energy of that? Because a lot of people don't, they'll hear that and be like, well, no, competition is good and anything to achieve the goal is good. But let's look at competition, or AKA comparison, right? So it's like, I got to compete with someone else is an energy of I'm not enough. Comparison is the thief of all joy. It's saying, I should be like you. I should do it this way. And this is why in our society, there's a structure of we have to do this and this and this. It has to look this way for us to have success. And we're so stuck in a box versus I am a fucking unique, magical, unicorn, alien being of light. You know this. And how could I ever be like someone else? Because I have my own voice box, my own fingerprints, my own toe prints. I've had my own experiences, my own beliefs, my own programs. there's 37.2 plus trillion unique cells. You said today something about like the amount of, or maybe it was Scott was talking about the amount of our cells and our everything that we have is so different. So isn't it crazy to think I could be like you and you should be like me and we should all do it this way? So when we're in competition with another, we're creating separation. It's coming from lack, fear, scarcity. That is energy. So as you said, when we make decisions based out of that, if we go, okay, I'm going to do this thing because I have to be enough, is like, you think it's like, I have to be enough. And it's a if and when. When I accomplish more success, if I have this thing, then you said it earlier, I get too happy. So it's always outside of us. It's always a process. It's always in the future, which is declaring and saying, I'm never enough. I'm never whole. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. It's always in the future.
Right now
is not. Exactly. Yeah. And so we keep vibrating lack, scarcity, worry, stress, and you keep running on that cycle, that hamster wheel, creating, doing. So someday I'm enough. And most people burn themselves out.
The funny thing is when somebody hears this, they go, well, I use it as a drive.
Right.
And what they don't realize is if you use it as a drive, then what you're saying is you're telling yourself that you aren't any good, that you're not worthy of anything that's good.
You're not worthy of flow and ease and grace.
And then you beat yourself up. So this way you can drive yourself to lift yourself up so that it contradicts itself. It's like, I'm going to starve myself so this way I can have the appetite to eat. But when it's time to eat, I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to keep starving myself. I'm going to eat a little bit and I'm going to starve. It's like there's no reason to constantly attack yourself to fuel yourself to do better. It's contradicting.
It's a minimal, low vibrational energy.
Yeah.
It's like when we say, I'll give love and take care of everybody else, and we're putting ourselves last, we're actually vibrating a love that's like, I have to show up this way. I should do this for you. I need, even when you said I needed to do more, I need to do this so that I can have success, so I can be happy. That energy of need says, I need something to be whole. And so it's like coming from that low vibrational love, that's all you can receive is the same low vibrational love. So what hopefully people can understand from this is what the world has created. There's a lot of people out there promoting that this is the way to do it. Sacrifice, work hard, kick ass, rock it out, warrior energy. And I too once operated from warrior, which is all perfect for each of us living and experiencing those archetypes just as you did.
Yeah.
And at some point I said, I don't want to be a fucking warrior anymore. I'm tired of being in the battle. So when you recognize that if you're operating from this energy, everything that you're feeding has this seed of energy and it comes from that. When you vibrate or you raise the vibration, which in flow, we talk about it's coming from a place where you're always in this high vibration.
Yes.
The way that I operate now is like, I'm so worthy of the universe setting up all the details. I only call in the highest beings of light. Like everything is ease and grace and flow, prosperity. And the more that I align to that, that's when I called in $1 million clients versus struggling to work at a low level and burn myself out. It's actually because my worthiness was a vibration of like, I'm so worthy. So it's like you magnify at such a degree the energy. You create so much more with such ease and such little effort. The effort is so tiny and yet the result is so much bigger when the vibration and the energy aligns to what that really is.
And the interesting thing about that is somebody at a low vibration, they have a hard time to connect the dot and really get this.
Because that's what they're bombarded by. That's their reference point. That's all that they
can
know.
only understand and receive information based on that level of frequency.
And
so I tell people, it's like, imagine that you're angry. And when somebody's angry, or when one of us, when we get angry, try to think about happy thoughts. Try to think about thoughts that you're grateful with. And what you're going to find is you are struggling, you are pulling teeth to try to think about it. All you can think about is other angry thoughts.
All these other things are pissing me off.
You just think about more thoughts that are angry, and these things cause you problem, and this causes you problem, and all you can think about is more problems. And it's not because you don't have anything that you're grateful about or you're happy about. It's because that person's not in a vibrational frequency to be able to access those thoughts. And I say it like that so this way people can look at themselves and they go, it's not you, it's just your energy.
It's what you've learned.
Yeah, it's what you learned, it's what your energy that you're used to being in. And so therefore, all you have to do, nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. There's no problems with you. If you change your energy, you can be the same you, but when your energy changes, you can say everything inside of you starts to shift, but when your energy changes, now you can access those thoughts of happiness. You can access a different perspective, and suddenly all the problems that are in your life, it's not that the problems go away. You simply just have another perspective of looking at the same problem. And now there's a solution that is easier, that is more effective.
How can I experience this with fun and ease, right? Even applying that as one of my steps, like, how could this be fun and easy? Is a different energy than like, okay, I got to fucking do this because I need this and I should do this. And then it'll give me that. There's a totally different energy in that. And what's interesting is in what you're saying and looking at is it reminds me of how, again, most people they wake up every day, and Joe Dispenza talks about this, like you wake up and they go, oh, I'm so-and-so. Oh, these are my traumas. This is my life experience. They come back to the reality of who they are, and they re-anchor into their system chemically, as well as all their same neural pathways, everything firing in the body that is addicted to the same feelings, emotions of suffering, struggle, trauma. And then they get up and they're playing this out and rewiring and continuing to
And they're trying to be creative and create something new. They're trying to go and be innovative, but they struggle because they are programming everything about them to be the same way, but they want to create something new.
And I say the only way to rise above this collective frequency that we've been trained in and conditioned and we've learned is, again, to rise above it. And so it's like when you come back to energy, is it expansive or contracting? Is it going to serve you and give you what you want, or is it creating more sacrifice and suffering? Any story, any attachment, expectation, any idea, any thought we have, we can evaluate and go, what's the energy here? Oh, I'm having this thought. So I actually walk through the 5 steps where it's like teaching people how to move through that to see it for what it is. But as you're saying, until we're willing to actually then put the focus and the energy on something that is a higher vibration, we're going to keep creating the same thing. So you caught yourself in that, like being like, whoa, this is like, when did that really shift for you with your business and everything where you're like, there's got to be more? What really happened there?
So the way mine happened was like a tidal wave. I wasn't thinking about any of these things that we're talking about. And while there was so much stress and so much frustration, my meetings were so intense. I used to punch the wall in my meetings. I mean, it was intense. When it was crazy, you know? And and here's the thing, it's like, I loved my guys. I wanted them to do good, but the way that I conducted myself and everything around me was fueled by fear, fueled by anger. And while I had the best intentions to help people get in shape and lift up everybody that worked for me, and they did, but because the energy was fueled by that, my approach, my actions, everything that I did had this fearful, hey, if you don't do this, you know, I love you, dude, and I want you to be here, but I'm gonna have to let you go. You're gonna get fired. And that's not a way to go and motivate someone. That's like motivating somebody with fear versus just helping them in another way. And I couldn't see another solution on how to do it. And so what happened was I went to an event in Utah, and that's when you and I met for the first time.
Right. I spoke at that event.
Yeah.
That's right. And you remember what I did? I played with Nerf guns against everyone telling me that I should not do that and that I would be in trouble. I was like, this is what I got. This is what came through. We're playing with Nerf guns. A whole other
and then you played this video of you on the beach and helping these people transform. And I remember watching it, I was thinking, holy shit, this is intense. You know, oh, this chick, she's a real dude. She's not just on video telling people, she's like grabbing them and transforming on the spot. You're going to change. I'm going to help them. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And so there was all these cool people that we met over there. And at the end of that event, at the last day, everybody was hanging out in the meditation room downstairs. And so let me rewind back. So that was the first time that I took psilocybin.
Plant medicine.
And I didn't want to mess with it because I had rumors that people were telling me that I was going to hallucinate and see things. And my dad has schizophrenia. And so I'm like, I don't want to go ahead and hallucinate. You know, it runs in my family. That's the last thing. So I was like, no, I'm just going to stay away from it. But after having a conversation with a woman I met there, and she told me that you're not going to hallucinate, you're just going to feel really, really good, and the lights may stick out a little bit, and you're just going to be happy. And I was like, oh, okay, it kind of sounds like ecstasy. And I've done that many years ago. Okay, cool, I'll give it a shot. And so when I tried it, and then I took a little MDMA afterwards, a little bit, it felt really good. I was dancing, and all this was all cool, right? It's like, okay, yeah, this kind of feels like SCR. Everything is great. And then I'm hanging out in this room and I'm having these conversations with these people. And there was a whole bunch of people around, about 40-something, 50 people in the meditation room. And as I was sharing my story about how I grew up, about how I got into exercise and all these things, I remember sharing it from a perspective that wasn't fear-driven. It was another perspective. It was a perspective based on passion. I had this story and I can repeat it right now because it is like so ingrained. And it was, I grew up in a hood in Houston, Texas, and I used to get picked on all the time, and people would beat me up, and I wanted to be strong, so I watched Arnold movies, and I trained myself to feel strong. All this is true from one perspective. It was.
Yeah.
But that night, I remember I was telling people that I started exercising because I was inspired by Arnold movies and Bruce Lee movies and Jet Li and Jackie Chan and all these kung fu movies. I was like, these guys are awesome, you know? And my neighbor across the street, there were 3 brothers, and the oldest brother, Damien, he was jacked. This guy, man, he was so jacked. And I was so inspired, and I would work out with him. And we didn't have any weights, we didn't have any money to buy any weights. And I was like using bricks and broomsticks and just trying to do curls and all these things. And I remember that's how I started exercising. And then I got my membership when I was 14 at 24 Hour Fitness. And one thing led to another with muscle magazines. And so this story has nothing to do with fear. Yeah. And this is exactly what I was sharing with people. Yeah. And then so people go, okay, tell me more. And then I started to share the next story, kind of like how you share these major events in your life. And there was a part in the stories to where it talked about having to prove people wrong. And at that point I stopped and I thought to myself, wait, I was trying to prove people wrong because of how I grew up, which started back way when I started working out. But yet I didn't say anything about it. And then it dawned on me that I suddenly was sharing a part of how I grew up, which was exactly the truth, but just a different perspective. Yeah. And I just thought that if I didn't share the fear, then suddenly I wouldn't have the fuel, the reason to do the next event. And so I didn't think anything of it, and I just kept going. And then the more I started to talk about these events in my life, I started to see how much of every single thing that I was doing was fueled by this reason to prove people wrong, reason to go and show people I'm not this little weakling person that was poor and grew up with nothing. Yeah. And if I didn't have that as a fuel, then none of the things would have happened. Yeah. And I started to realize, oh my God, I can't just be this story, like who Mike Chang is can't be a story because I just changed the story right then and there. Yeah. And I didn't change. I'm still right here. Yeah. Nothing changed.
And I want to clarify so people realize, so when you had said earlier, you said everything you were acting in with your team, with decisions, everything was anger, was fear, it was control. It was, and again, whatever you're trying to control is controlling you. Now notice as you back up your story and you say, I grew up picked on, beaten up, all that anger that was stored in your system of being, and you even use the words now, a weakling. So there's a story of I'm weak, so I have to, and this is what we don't know unconsciously we're committed to and is happening. So it's like, I've got to prove myself. I'm going to show everybody.
I think people even sometimes they know that they're trying to prove, but they don't think anything is wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's because again, we've been taught to operate out of the way that we're designed in our divinity. We've been taught to operate out of fear, stress, worry. This is why you're wearing the Frequency Alliance key. The key that we're both wearing is from my company where it gives you divine frequency. And the whole point of that is that the collective, the normal everyday person has no idea what the reference point of peace, forgiveness, unconditional love, acceptance is because they're surrounded by and operating from fear, stress, worry, I'm not enough, rejection, all these core wounds, and we're just feeding them and supplying those.
And people around them are operating the same way. Exactly. So it's like, I'm operating because I'm trying to prove myself, and you go, oh yeah, same here. I was picked on. Oh yeah, so we're trying to do this. Yes, that's why. Yeah. And then therefore, nothing is wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you. This is normal.
The way it is. And normal, we get to realize, normal, as I talk about this in my book, The Awakened Being, normal is broken. In that it's normal, we're all operating from sacrifice, suffering, struggle, lack, scarcity, sickness, disease. We know that dis-ease is out of ease with life. Out of flow with life creates dis-ease, out of ease. Enlightenment is to be in light. So the other thing I want to clarify is, and I'm sure you do it in a very different way now, working with plant medicines and the sacred space and all that. And I know you've gone super deep with that and it's opened and activated a lot of things. The beauty of plant medicine, which I don't know if you recognize was happening there, is what it does is it softens the lines of separation. So we, as the human, we're only seeing everything through the constructs of our consciousness that we have. Like you said, people can only see it out of what they know and what they've learned when they don't have a reference point of something different. They don't have a reference point of people living in freedom and joy. They only have a reference point of we all have to work hard and do this and someday then, and it's all, this is what we're trained to do. What happens with plant medicines and opening up those earth elements is that it softened the lines of that separation of only seeing through the construct of what you can see and actually connecting to your highest self, connecting to the universe, connecting to energy, to actually, I can now feel and witness what's been suppressed and inside me that's coming up. And so what was really happening, even though you're with people, and what was coming up was, this was the truth. Yes. I can now see beyond the illusion of just out of what I saw only as a human. And I actually can see myself from a greater lens of whoa. And I love, and I just want to honor and appreciate how the moment you started talking about your story, you took full radical responsibility. You took full ownership of like, I was operating out of this. I was saying these things. I was coming from this energy and connecting the dots for people that it's never going to change when we say, my team was doing this. They should do that. When people do that, it's like whenever it's outside of ourselves, all we're doing is playing a bullshit game of continuing to stay in the cycle. Yeah. When we recognize, and so the softening allowed you to go, whoa, oh my gosh, I've been seeing everything through fear. When the truth is, whoa, I had these beautiful experiences. Your childhood and your experiences allowed you, your mess becomes your message. Your mess became the message of who you are. And then the next level of evolution for you to be who you are now, I can't even imagine you operating from that place because I've gotten to experience, we just laugh our asses off and we want to jump in the pool from the roof and we're just dancing and playing. We were rolling around on the floor today. Like we're just like, yee! We're just pure light beings of joy. Yet that got to be cleansed and cleared and activated within our systems to go, whoa, we are worthy of ease and grace and flow. So there's such beauty there in recognizing that when we take responsibility even to say, whoa, what is the result that I have in my life? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? Are they a contraction or an expansion? Are they love-based or are they fear-based? And what do I get to do to then allow that evolution to come forth? So I love
that's the anchor. That's the why for listening to podcasts like this, for reading the books, for doing the work. Somebody has to have that why, Yeah. And sometimes I look at it as like, somebody's looking through a door. Like we see that door there and
trying to look through the keyhole.
Yeah, it's like a keyhole. So, but when we look at like judgments, imagine that you're standing in front of a window, right? It's a glass window and you're looking outside. And you see that the window is really clear, so you get to see everything outside for what it is. But imagine that if every judgment that you have in your mind was like a black dot on this window. And then if somebody has a lot of judgments, this window that started off to be really clear, when we're born, we have a clear window. And as we get older and we develop our mind and we develop, this is the way this is the way that is, here's the way I should do it and don't do it.
What really happens is we get programmed.
We get programmed. Now we're putting all of these black dots in front of this window. And now when we look through this window, we don't really see what's out there. We see these dots. We see these programs that's in front of us. And so the older we get, if we don't clear this window, we can't see what's actually there. And there's so many people out there, they can't see what's there anymore. And so they look at an opportunity and what they see is fear. They look at somebody.
What if people judge me? Or I get rejected, or this happens, instead of, I'm so excited to see, what if it happens great, right? Or I'm so excited to see what I create and who I meet, etc.
And this is happening on all levels, like even relationships. Like sometimes I think about it, it's like, man, somebody will look at somebody that loves them, that is treating them well, and they look at them and what they will see is they will see this person may cheat on me. This person is not interested in me, is interested in somebody else.
They see
this
all their
person
rooms.
Doesn't like me. And so they don't really see what's actually happening. They can only see their judgments.
Their projections.
And it happens in every aspect of their life, and especially when they look in the mirror. And so what people need to do is they need to clear all of these judgments. And I think that's really the main thing, is when they clear their judgments, they're able to see clearly into who they really are. They can see other people for who they are. They can see situations. And now their ability to have imagination actually unfolds, like their creativity.
Infinite possibilities versus
unfold.
And that's what's beautiful about this is like all timelines exist. There's infinite possibilities in every situation. I always say to people, the reason you see what you see is based on your programming, your projections, your beliefs, your experience, because you could have there could be an infinite possibility of what you could see, the thought you have, what you choose. And so when you see judgment and you see worry, it's based on what's inside that still gets to be witnessed and healed, fully felt, fully healed, fully loved, to then be transmuted to what's available and what's there. So when you saw your story shift from fear to then, whoa, I actually see that I could be, this was my inspiration. Is that what shifted for you?
At the end of that 6 hours, well, before I took that, I was sitting at a talk, and our friend Jesse, Jesse Elder,
Jesse.
What a guy, man. He had a talk about authenticity, and it was so powerful. And I remember listening to it and realizing that I wasn't authentic.
Yeah.
And one line stood out so much, which is, if you care about what other people think of you, you're not genuine. You can't be genuine or authentic. And I remember sitting there and at first going, oh, no, I don't care about what other people think. I'm genuine. I'm authentic. I teach people how to do this. Yeah. And then I sat there and I thought a little longer. And then suddenly I started to connect the dots about, I think about this before I do this. I think about that. And I go, oh, crap. I'm actually really, really not authentic. Holy crap. And I remember sitting there like just mind blown of this realization. It's like I'm telling people and I think I am this and suddenly I'm not.
Yeah.
And it was so moving for me that at that very moment, I decided I'm going to do my best to not worry about what other people think of me. I didn't know what to do, except I'm just not going to care. I didn't know how that was going to unfold. But later on that night, took the mushrooms, chocolate, right? Took some MDMA, started sharing these stories, right? And I remember sharing and just having that in the back of my mind. Don't care about what other people think. Just share without caring. And I realized the way I share without caring is I don't need to think about anything in my head. Whatever's in my head, I just say it out loud. Because why would I have to think about what I want to express?
Why would you put a filter on it unless there was a filter for...
So I was walking around the room telling people that I'm just speaking whatever's on my mind and no filter. And number one, it felt so good.
Yeah.
But that action was the surrender.
Yeah.
And it was letting go. And I did that for 6 hours nonstop. And for the last 4 years, I would go back into that event and I would think about all the characteristics, all the variables of what I did in that 6 hours. Because my goal is to go ahead and create this in other people. Because no matter if somebody is looking for that experience or not, that experience, the way I felt, every single person on this planet wants that.
Yeah.
I don't care if they know it. I didn't know it, but when it happened, I realized instantly that it was the most valuable thing ever. And I decided
it's freedom. It reminds me of how, like with my story, I remember, I mean, these are silly to me now, but I remember when I first started being a stand for truth and sharing expression, I remember the stories kind of like, oh no, I didn't want people to find out that I had a cheating husband, got divorced, because it was like, oh, like there was a silly thought that was like, oh, if people find out that my husband cheated on me, they might think that I wasn't good at sex. Or like all these crazy things. And I realized trying to hide anything was literally exhausting. It's like it just takes up all your energy. And so the energy that we all have is usually being used up by the control factor, the worry, the stress, all these things. And when we cleanse and clear that, we're just so filled with energy that it's so easy. And when I understood that shift, that authenticity is the greatest gift I could give anyone. Because when I'm authentic and I stand for truth, also I give other people permission to like, oh, and people constantly say, you're so free, you're so liberated. And they could tell, I want that. And when I recognized how good it felt, it was like, I am not fucking going back. Like this feels awesome. And recognizing the beauty of all of our story, the divine beauty of all parts of it that we get to witness, that it's like the dark and the light is all, again, we know this now, was an operation of love.
Yes.
You know, you chose all those experiences out of love. And when we stopped giving ourselves a story that was out of pain or sacrifice or struggle, we're like, oh, what did this teach me? What did I get from this? How did I set this up as my greatest gift? These people that showed up in front of me were teaching me what I got to learn, etc. Then it becomes that we can create the freedom for ourselves and be that. Yeah. So how did you go into, I'll let you continue to share like how you evolved into flow being the state that you operate in now.
I want to answer that question directly, and then I'll go back to that experience, that 6 hour experience. So I realized that if I go and start to focus on my thoughts, focus on letting go of this, finding out what really happened, all these things, it gives me the reason to continue on the path to becoming happier, to increasing my vibrations and things like that. However, so I've learned this over and over. I mean, I swear it took 4 years and a lot of trial and error.
You continue to embody it at different levels, right?
Yes. And at some point, what would happen would be like this. I would have this realization, oh my God, I've been acting this way, thinking these things. I've been looking at people, looking at scenarios this way. I need to look at it that way. And then I'll look at it that way for a little bit. And then I realize weeks later or months later that I'm back to the old way. And I'm like, what happened? I swear I saw it that way. And suddenly it just shifted back. Mm-hmm. And I started to look and I realized, there is another step that has to happen. So what happens is a lot of people, they first have to realize that something is wrong. Something needs to change. If not, there's no reason to spend all this time and energy on trying to do all this personal development, spiritual stuff. For what, But when they realize, if I do this, if I change my energy and I raise my frequency, my perspective changes, all my problems that's in my life goes away because I'm not going to create it anymore. My energy is not creating anymore. Everything that is coming out of me isn't going to create it anymore. Wow, that makes sense. I need to go make this change. Yeah. So now they get to that part. Then they go, okay, so now that I need to change, what I need to do is I need to let go of all of those things all of the problems that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. And this is a really big part of the journey that many people don't get past. Mm-hmm. They take a while to get to this first step, which is realizing that there is an issue and I've been acting and thinking and operating in this frequency and this state of consciousness, a fear-based, proving myself type of way. But at this next point, they need to transcend out of that into, okay, I'm going to put my attention to what I want. Yep. I'm going to put my attention to doing the process, the part of making my body feel good, thinking about good thoughts, and stop thinking about the reason why I'm doing everything. Mm-hmm. And that part right there is probably one of the biggest things that a lot of people miss out when they're on this path. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is when they think about problems and they think about fixing everything, if that's what they're thinking about, they actually end up creating more of the problems. And everything that they're doing that is not good for their life will come out more and more. Because once they realize that this is what they're doing and that gives the reason why, they need to move on into this next phase of focusing their time, energy, thoughts, and feelings on what they want to create and stop thinking about the why you need to create it. Yeah. And this is tricky. So I want to dive into this a little bit. When somebody knows why they need to do something, they don't have to have it in their top mind awareness anymore because they know. But if at any point, this doesn't mean that they forgot. Just because they're not thinking about it on the top of their head doesn't mean that they forgot. It just means that it's not something that is circulating in their mind constantly. And somebody was to ask them, why do you do all this stuff? They would go, oh, well, here's the reason why. If you really want to know. But that's not something that they think about all the time. Because what they think about all the time is what they create. And so if they always think about, I was suffering, I have this problem, I always do this to people, I always create these bad situations, and I'm in this low vibrational state, that's why I need to get out of it. And if they think about that all the time, they just create more of that. Exactly. And so I meet so many people that are stuck right there. So what they need to do is they go, okay, they need to let all the stories go and focus on what they want to create. Focus on how their future is going to unfold. Focus on the love, the joy, the compassion, the fun, and focus on things like that, the things that they actually want in their life. And only seldomly, when they need these little reminders, they can go, oh, well, the reason why is because of those things that I used to do. But other than that, they don't put their attention in those negative stuff anymore.
I feel like for me, in my personal experience and what I teach is, there's a gap that most people aren't aware of as to why they stay stuck in that place. Again, because when we just go, well, I need to just think about all this stuff, what we're still running from is what actually is showing up. So even if the thought comes up of I'm not enough, when we actually learn to allow that thought and to surrender to accept the thought. See, now we're giving the acceptance, the energy of acceptance, energy like, oh, interesting. I'm feeling like I'm not enough. Why is that? And getting curious so that we go to the root of the vibration and we cleanse and clear it to be able to be like, why do I feel like I'm not enough? Where did that come from? Even from you going from, oh my gosh, what assisted your shift was you went back and go, whoa, I took that on from this. So you didn't even know this whole time you were operating out of, I have to prove myself until you were aware of, oh, that's why I've been operating from this place. And now that I can see that, oh, I took that on, that's actually not even true. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. What's most important is me being happy and in freedom. And you gave yourself an experience that allowed you to now integrate, wow, this actually feels good. So I feel like you're diving into integration. which is so important because it's very surface self-empowerment to just go, okay, I need to just focus on this. I need to do a new thought. Because what happens is people can try when they're motivated, when they have willpower, which is not coming from your divine will energy that you have, it's coming from force. I'm going to force this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to think about this. And then what happens, like you said, also we get caught back in, oh my gosh, how did this show up? But there's never been an acceptance that we are actually having those thoughts and feelings. So when you dive deep into the gene keys, the I Ching, the human traits, we all have every human trait that exists within us. We all have the trait of manipulation as well as honesty. That's why whatever we're projecting or judging about someone else is what we haven't owned within ourselves. How do I do that? How is that existing and operating within me that I can go, oh, this is the reality of what I'm creating. How have I been manipulative? Even if it's been manipulative to myself. And so what I see as the cycle is people try to, it's like, we know this with teaching the body, is people like, okay, I'm going to start my diet and I'm going to do this thing. And it's all force. But see, underneath it is the scared little boy or girl that is so afraid that if they don't look a certain way, they're not enough, that they're not going to be attractive. And then they sabotage because deep underneath that, I've seen people have beliefs of like, I'm going to be attacked, I'm going to be abused, or they're scared of being seen. They're not worthy of it being that easy. So they got to fight the body. They've been fighting their body their whole life. And until that is witnessed and healed, that story is actually healed to say, oh, this is what's really underneath it. I can now see that out of love. I can actually see that I was just a little girl. Like for me at 4 years old, if we dove into the body stories, it was at 4 years old when I had two memories. One was, I remember one day my mom just all of a sudden like getting so upset. She was so emotional upset. And at 4 years old, I didn't necessarily understand it fully, but I understood that she was upset at her body. She was like, I remember her saying the words, I worked so hard to lose 10 pounds or something like that, just to gain it back again. It was like 5 or 10 pounds. And even though I didn't conceptualize and understand fully what she was saying, I could tell she was mad at her body and she was emotional about her body didn't look a certain way. And the words that came out of my mouth at 4 years old, being able to witness my mother as, I love my mom. I want my mom to be happy. I said, well, God must have given it back to you because you needed it. That's what came out of my mouth. As an innocent, sweet little 4-year-old, I saw my mom as perfect. Now, from my mom's programming and stories and conditioning, she was fighting her body, always never enough. And so again, fighting food, all the patterns and behaviors. So we can fight and we do this thing. We shed the weight. And I say shed because then that's letting it go. But people lose the weight only to attract it back again. Because again, our mind is focused on losing. See, all these little unconscious ways of us operating in our language and everything else is just putting that energy towards it. So she could never come to a place of peace with her body because it was always like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and then sabotage. Because deep down, there's I'm not really worthy. It's always been a fight. All she ever knew her whole life was the fight. So then my other memory was one day her saying, I'm going to go for a walk. You want to come? And she was going to go out for walking for exercise. I'm like 4-year-old. Yeah, let's go for a walk. And I remember like jumping out with my mom and going to walk. And I reach up to hold her hand thinking we're going to walk. She's like, oh, no, I can't hold your hand. I have to do this. For those of you listening to audio, that's swinging your arms really quickly. That was like the exercise style back in like the 80s, right? Yeah. It was the fast walks where you sway your hips and you move your arms. And now it was not, my mom had no intention of hurting me. It's not like it was a traumatizing experience, but at that moment when I did my own inner work and journey, I traced it back to that moment I made a decision of, oh, your body is so important. How you look is so important. It means more than anything else. If you don't look a certain way, you're not enough. That's where I programmed and decided if I don't look a certain way, I'm not loved. I'm not enough. So for me, it started at 4 years old. Now, in my experience, and this is why we both went the journey of the body that led us to feelings, emotions, DNA, our consciousness, everything else. It was the beginning mess for me that led to my message. But it came to realizing that that's why, like at 14, I was anorexic and bulimic all the way till 19 years old. 19, I had a heart attack from like fighting my body. Like
19.
Yeah. Jesus. I mean, I had a breast cancer at 24. I mean, I had sicknesses all growing up because I had been programmed with, I have to fight the body, not only the weight, but my father had diabetes and he died when I was 15. So it was like my whole world was the body doesn't work. Sickness and disease is normal. You have to fight everything. Everything was struggle from, I grew up on a farm. We had to grow our own food to survive. So it's like, this is where it starts. Now, until we're willing to witness the stories that are there and fully be with them and see, oh, now you said we were born with a clean slate. We were born with that clear window. We were born perfectly. We were born whole and complete. We are whole and complete. What we then took on was stories and ideas that took us away from what is really true, how we're meant to operate. Now you think of a child, how when they start learning to move their hands and they're like, ooh, what is this? We talked about today how I think the numbers, I'm not totally quoting this, but it was like a baby moves like 3,000 times per minute. Like the little tiny quirks and like, oh, moving. And it's like you watch them, they're constantly moving and expressing. And by the time we're 3 years old, it's shut down to like an inkling, like the percentage was like 1 to 5% of that we were taught how we can move, what we can do, etc. So we learn to be conformed and shut down to feel, to express, to be heard, to be seen, sit down, be quiet, listen, you have to act this way, be this way. So that's where it starts. And it's all just programming.
And the limited in body expression is also a limitation in their mind expression, in their expression period.
And we know now, your vessel, your body, the more the capacity you have in your vessel equates to the capacity you can receive. Yeah. So the depths that I am willing to go to these dark places, these places where people would run from out of fear. I don't want to go there. I'm just going to distract. I'm going to tell myself the thought and I'm going to try to do the thing. But see, that's why they keep sabotaging. They actually haven't healed it and recognized in their body that it was never true. We have to come back to the place. So in my first Aya journey, in my first experience, where I had this experience where I saw myself as the 4-year-old, and I saw myself as like the 4-year-old, like imperfection. Again, soften the lines. I saw it through not my human self. I saw myself through the cosmic energy connection of source consciousness. Was like, whoa, this perfect, beautiful little 4-year-old that was so divine and gorgeous. I saw her out of such, I was like, oh, she's so pretty. She's so perfect. How could I? And what I saw was what I chose and took on the decision at that time that said, I'm not enough. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I'm scared to be seen. I can't be heard. I learned to shut down everything. Then I started to witness how that came about in my life. How like walking down the halls of school, I was so embarrassed of who I was. I literally wouldn't make eye contact and I'd look at the floor and I wished I lived in an invisible bubble. I literally hated who I was. And what I saw was shame energy that I took on, shame to be myself, which shame is the lowest vibrating energy that exists. So if my whole life I was operating from this place of shame, and again, I have to prove myself, I have to do this, that's where we were operating from in that masculine structural place we've been taught of like, I have to do, I have to prove, I have to, show, I have to get, and it's a push energy. It's a force energy coming from I'm not enough. But the moment I saw the stories as untrue and recognized my mom had learned the same programming her mom had taught her, and it was just this cycle that then I took on as well. And instead of continuing from that place, what was I creating? More sickness, disease. I had attackers, I had rape attempts, I had stalkers, everything that was fear-based, that was I'm not enough. And so as I saw, this is when I started to question, as I saw that when I would create an aligned body, like a body that looked good in health, I wanted to sabotage. What was behind that? I was scared to be beautiful. I was scared to be seen. When I first got offered TV as a nutrition fitness expert, I instantly had an injury show up on my right foot. I couldn't even walk. And as I looked at, right foot, moving forward, masculine energy, doing, what am I afraid of doing? When I went into my body and the stories, it was, if you're seen, you're going to be attacked. If you're on TV, you're going to have abusers and attackers because that's what I connected being seen to. Yes. So I had to clear that and be like, oh, sweetie, thank you for, this was just a story, an idea and program. And I had to create a new contract with my little girl inside. What's really true is, sweetie, is when we're in the light, when we're seen, we're the most safe. We attract all the angels, all of our friends. We attract the clients who want the freedom we have. But when we're hiding in the dark, so this is the crazy thing. People are hiding in the dark.
There are just all reasons in our mind. Yeah. We come up with reasons for the fear. Yeah. And if we come up with reasons to not be afraid and reasons for empowerment, reasons to feel good, then it's like, okay, well now all the reasons create a new way of being.
Exactly. And the gap I feel like that I just want people to hear is it's not run from your stories. It's not force yourself to just think new thoughts and take new actions, because that's still force. When you're running from what you're really afraid of and you're running from what's really inside you, when you're willing to go, oh, this resistance, I always say the receiving is on the other side of resistance. We know that resistance comes up with our comfort zones to be like, ooh, what's really here? In your darkest caves that fear you, you move through that tunnel in that cave that scares you, and you come out on the other side to the greatest magical world and light that you could have ever witnessed, but it wouldn't be accessed unless you're willing to go through the cave and the darkness. And so this is what I meant by the capacity we have in our vessels. We both operate in a very highly evolved place now because we've gone the journey of going deep into our stories and anything that was fear in our bodies, and to now operate in a place of, life is so fucking epic and it's like bliss and joy. So the capacity we have for receiving is in reflection of the capacity that we are willing to go into the scared self, into the shadows, into the stories. The more we're willing to actually accept and love ourselves, having any emotion and any feeling and receive that allows us to now be like, and I'm worthy of just as much on the other end of bliss and joy. But most people are like, oh, I don't want to see the fear. I want to avoid it. So there's a gap there that's really important. And this is why most people stay in the surface self-empowerment, reading books, attending seminars, doing the things to try to force their mind to see it differently.
I see what you mean.
Yep.
There's something else on that. When they are accepting what actually has to happen.
Which we both know.
So every thought is attached to a feeling. Every story, especially every story that we have, events that we have in our life, it's attached to a certain feeling, a certain energetic feeling, energetic frequency. And so when we accept, one aspect of it is we have to reprogram that feeling that's attached to the story. And because some people, when they think about accept, they go, okay, so I've accepted, that means I'm going to identify that this is who I am and I'm going to accept it. It's like, well, that's one step, but because you have to do that, you have to know this is who you are, you're going to be okay with it. But now what's important is you have to change this feeling that you have when you think about the story. So then this way it doesn't become, you don't experience this event again. And a lot of times that's why people avoid it, because when they talk about it, they experience all of those negative emotions
and they want to run from it.
And that trauma, it's like happening again. So like, I don't want to experience this trauma again. Let me just not think about it. But just because they don't think about it doesn't mean that trauma is not, in their system. It's still in there. So they have to look at it and they have to reprogram. They have to take away that feeling. And now we tie back into what I did those 6 hours. I realized this the other, like literally a few days ago. I was having a conversation with Natalia. This was like at 1 a.m. I'm pacing around in the house. This is like, I walk around and I think and I figure things out. And one thing I was thinking about is, how do we go ahead and reprogram our stories? Because these stories that we have, it either makes us feel like we're awesome, we're the shit, we got it. Or the story makes us feel like we aren't anything and we're going to fail at it. And what is the point in even trying? And the thing about that is, if we are trying to reprogram, we need to have the thought that we are wanting to reprogram, and we need to have a new feeling that is attached to the thought that is happening. So let me rephrase that so it comes out even more clean. If I am thinking of a story in my mind, that thought is not manifested enough. I need to speak out that story. So that story can be, I grew up in this place, these things happened, and then this happened, this happened, this happened. So I need to speak out that thought, that story. And when I speak it out, what would happen usually if I didn't clear it is there will be some type of negative emotion, right? So at this point, I need to also change, I need to be in a good feeling state. I need to keep my body feeling really, really good while I say this story that could be making me feel really, really bad. And here's the dilemma. And so I started thinking, and in those 6 hours, what I did was I was speaking all the events of my life, one after another. And nobody taught me this. I was tapping myself on the top of my head and I was doing deep inhale breathing.
You're moving the energy.
And it just felt good, but I didn't know why. It just felt good. So I was doing that. And while I was speaking everything, speaking my trauma, speaking all these experiences that was attached to not being enough, that was attached to these negative emotions, I was speaking those, but instead of feeling the negative emotions, I was feeling good. And the reason I was feeling good is because I was walking around, I was tapping myself on the top of the head, and I was constantly doing deep inhales. And that action, along with the psilocybin and MDMA, allowed my feeling to be really good. And while I was speaking those stories, I was reprogramming those stories with a good feeling.
And you can actually say, in my past experience, we're not owning the story now. There's lots of little things to this, and where it's like, so in my past experience, this is what I experienced. But what I see with stories, some of the first training I used to teach people stories is looking at it as just, it was an experience. See, when we don't put labels or attachments, I had this experience, and making it bad or shameful or wrong, it's like I can say, yeah, I experienced being cheated on, I experienced this, I experienced this, I experienced. It's just what I actually chose as my experience to be who I am now, right? Like, so it's like you get to reframe and have a new story. But I love that what was happening too is your cells were releasing. You had plant medicine, softening those lines, letting that stuff come up. You were breathing and moving the energy out, and you were reprogramming a high. So truth always feels light and sets you free. Lies always feel heavy and limiting. So the key here too is when we say a story, but like you said, if you feel heavy in your body and you can't believe it, you're just reprogramming the same thing. But when we can say something and we can actually go, okay, so it's like I teach in manifestation where it's like, if this doesn't feel true, if we're like, I'm receiving millions of dollars and your whole system is like, I don't believe that to be true. If you keep saying that, you're just reaffirming, I'm not worthy of millions of dollars. I feel heavy receiving millions of dollars. We haven't actually seen what's there that doesn't make us feel worthy of receiving that. But can we break that down and go, there's abundance everywhere and I'm excited to receive abundance every day? Can we see that to be true? Could we see I'm healthier every day? And we can feel that to be true versus I'm 6-pack abs when people have 100 pounds to shed. See, it's like, let's tune into actually creating the feeling that we can resonate with. And it can be the simple inch, even by you tapping and moving and breathing, that stuff was moving that you're like, oh, this story, what I feel was there for you was this story was just a story. Yeah. It wasn't actually, it doesn't have to be my truth anymore. I can now see it out of love and light that it was just a story. It was just my experience.
Yeah, that's so good. I talk about just even that inch is going to create such a huge difference.
Massive.
And then maybe they sit with this inch for weeks or months or years. And then whenever they're ready, now they can go into, I can make millions of dollars. I'm going to, and it's all good.
Yeah, well, you look at so I believe the mastery is in the subtlety. The mastery is in the micro alignment. The moment we feel, so the more let's talk about as we move this into flow training, like meaning flow with the body, the more we're willing and what we're hoping. My intention here for people to hear and witness is that when we allow and give ourselves permission to feel what's happening in our bodies. See, you talked about it. You've got a black window that we built up. Now, not only if we're staying in the same patterns of burns, we're adding more on every single day. But when we start to actually lean in every day to go, ooh, this doesn't feel good. What's here? And allow that and honor that and witness it and be able to then clean it to like, oh, this is what's really true. This is the story I'm now choosing. This is what I really want to create. This is what, and we can now, it could be like, oh, I'm excited to see how this video goes instead of like, oh no, what if I'm seeing? Like we take that micro alignment, the subtlety that starts to cleanse and clear. What happens is we're cleansing the system, the cells, we're creating new stories, but now we're not only like not adding more black dots on, we're wiping the slate clean. That we can, now we elevate. So my story of going from like a $2 an hour waitress, cheated on, single mom, to then creating $1 million clients. Within a few years, they did a documentary in my life. Like, how did you do that? It wasn't just, now today I can accept $1 million clients. It literally was micro alignments of, okay, if I get to be the vibration of worthiness, how I treat myself is a reflection of how I get treated by others. That means I get to schedule a massage for myself. That means I get to practice loving myself. That means so me being the micro alignments is then what created massive energy shift in the field that then I receive greater and greater and greater. Now we're experiencing life where we just operate in pure bliss and flow and fun and joy, which most people are like, I don't know how that's even possible. But that's our norm. So, but what we had to reset love our voices that come out.
And the movement.
It's like, I remember moving to California when I gave myself permission to move to California. Here now we're traveling the globe and we just play all over the world. It's like, I remember going down to the beach and like feeling like, can I breathe this in? This is my new norm. This is my new norm. Me getting to live in paradise is my new norm. It was so far off my norm. So I had to reprogram. This is my new norm. So I always tell people, like, if you're not feeling joy, peace, pleasure, bliss, whatever you want to be feeling, then that's when we get to be aware of like, what is here? What do I get to cleanse and clear or be with? That then I return myself back to that level of alignment so that this is my new norm. So now we're programming, this is our new norm. So I would love to hear what evolved from you and going in like in discovering this, like all the things that moved into the flow state.
You know how you're saying when someone is feeling this joy, this bliss, this happiness. So I thought about, I spent these last 4 years after leaving Six Pack to really go ahead and have this deeper understanding of looking at the human body and trying to see, is there another way to do it? Is there another way to go ahead and reprogram it? Yeah. And then I thought about this idea, right? So if we are thinking about stories and then we feel this feeling, every story creates a different feeling. And so over time, we get used to these feelings that we feel in the body.
Becomes our norm.
And becomes our norm. Now our norm is, let's say, these three feelings. We feel a little courage to do something, and then we also feel fearful to do something, and then we also feel shameful to want to do nothing. And we just kind of bounce around in those. But let's say, and then those are attached to thoughts. But what would happen if we program the body to feel the joy, feel the bliss, feel strength, feel confident, and forget the stories and just get the body to get used to feeling those feelings? Then what happens is when we are thinking of things that are usually creating these fearful feelings, but because we're so used to feeling these feelings of strength, these feelings of bliss and joy, when we think about those things, instead of feeling the bad stuff, we can feel good. And here's how. You see, our bodies are addicted to feeling a certain way, just like our thoughts are addicted to thinking a certain way. So what happens, what people try to do a lot of times is they try to only change the way they feel through their thoughts. And it's really, really difficult because your thoughts will constantly fight you back. That's where you have the little angel sitting on your shoulder and the devil sitting on the other, and they're just going at it.
It's like a bipolar game. It's trying to operate out of logic.
There's a crazy debate in your head, right? And you're just sitting there going, what the heck, you know? It's like, and then
you're not present, you're not in the moment, you're in your head thinking in somewhere else.
At best, there's two people. Sometimes there's a lot more. Holy crap. So I thought, I was like, you know what? How about this? How about let's not go through all this debate stuff, and instead, let's just get the body to constantly feel joyful, constantly feel strong, constantly feel relaxed, constantly feel at ease. And if the body can get used to constantly feeling like that, then it gets the same way. Just like a body is addicted to feeling all this bad stuff, let's get the body addicted to feeling good stuff.
Joy,
And then when the body's addicted to feeling good stuff, guess what? The same thing happens. The body will naturally, without thinking, feel good. Something's going to have to throw it off for it to feel bad. If not, it goes back into a normal state of feeling good. And feeling good is feeling relaxed, feeling at ease, feeling strong, feeling really
peaceful,
satisfied,
fulfilled. This is what we're all striving for, but we're running to. And I think today you said something powerful, which was like, trying to change with the mind, when you're like, but the mind, when you were pointing to your head, you're like, but this is still the body. And all of this, if this is the body, why are we trying to use this little tiny inkling, which, like I said, the mindset is like using your pinky finger. Can you imagine trying to do everything with your pinky finger? It only works for a few things. But it's like, instead, that's where we talked about and getting into flow was, you're like, what if I change it by movement and breath and all these things that allow the energy to move? And I'm using so much more of what I have access to than doing the same normal struggle. And that, it just made so much sense today when you even said that. You're like using the body versus trying to fight with the mind. Because of course we know we get to shift the mindset as well. Yet when you're elevated at a higher level, I tell people the moment they feel contraction and they feel resistance, first thing to do is just breathe and sway and let that energy move. Interesting. We're accepting. Interesting that this thought is here. This feeling is here. And now we're ready to take the next inch, which would be like, ooh, what is this? What am I feeling? Well, why? And like, how do I now see this for what it is and cleanse and clear this out? So even going into what I really feel is so powerful. And for people to get this is, as we talk about flow and being relaxed. So I said this today, and that your nervous system is just an overactivated ego. And so it's like this, I have to, it's like running the mind all the time, and we're tight and we're stressed and we're tense. We're carrying all this shit in our cells, and our body is like guarded and our heart's shut down and all this stuff. And us coming from the training background of time under tension, right? Lifting and structural and this and that. And we're like, what you've developed and brought together is how much more can we release and relax the body and feel all of our body. And we're going now back to like when we were born and we had ability to move and express in all ways. And then we start to get shut down because, oh, I can't and I have to. So we're actually moving so much energy out of our body, and the coming back to our divinity, our normal, the way that we are as our natural state of being, which is operating out of love, operating out of play, operating out of pleasure, operating out of discovery and curiosity, and all those things comes from the permission to move and to be relaxed, and our nervous system to be settled, and to stop the mind and actually be in the present moment with the body and what we're feeling and what's here and what we want and what's the most nourishing for our soul. Coming from that place, most people couldn't even imagine going, what's the most nourishing for my soul? That's how I operate now. Literally, it's like each mom's like, ooh, what would feel good? What's the most nourishing for my soul? Ooh, yeah, that feels good. How would that how would that be fun and easy? And everything is about this dance and this play of what feels good for me, because I am my highest priority, because my energy, we talked about having these dope ass places we choose because it supports our energy to then create and be and play and pleasure. But when we try to do something else and we sacrifice or settle or create suffering, we're shut down, our energy shut down. So it's like my worthiness, the level of worthiness I give myself, then equates to what I receive and being in flow and bliss and joy.
And I want to add on to that. When you're in your highest energy and you're in flow, you give more. Because some people listening be like, oh, but I want to spend more time giving. No, you actually give more because
so much more.
All the energy that you have now get to pour out of you.
Well, and it's pouring out of you in love and joy and pleasure. Yes. And you're choosing what is your passion. So you are such a divine being to witness. You really are. Like Andrew, I think Andrew and I were talking about you, and he was just like, Mike has this energy. I remember, we went rafting recently. Yeah. All of us went rafting, and I was in the other raft, and I remember looking back, and you were back in the water playing, and just like, I'm like, Mike is constantly like in play and joy. You're just this essence and this energy. And I can only imagine that being a completely different world for you than what you were experiencing years ago. And this is why you're saying, like, you're just playing and you get to experience life in such a greater degree. And just being you, this is what, it was a mind fuck for me at first. And it expanded my mind to realize just being the vibration I am of choosing peace and bliss and joy, as I'm vibrating that out, I am changing the planet more than if I was operating from a place of, I have to do this or create this or to be that, etc. All I'm sharing is just like the craziness of moms teaching their kids, or moms and dads teaching their kids, they have to do something, should do this. It's coming from a place of just, they're sacrificing for their kids. They're just teaching their kids to grow up in sacrifice. To then they have to sacrifice themselves for other people to love them, instead of teaching them, I'm a divine being who's worthy of being happy and joyful. What would feel good for me? Well, what would feel good for you? How would we create that? And getting to honor that.
At all levels. Mm-hmm. See, like on one level, somebody can look at you and they can use you as an example. Oh, she's joyful, she's free, but she's also a mom, she's also an entrepreneur. Look how she lives her life. And they can look at that and they can go, wow, I'm going to just copy that. But then on another level is the thoughts that you're having is vibrating out of you, and it is influencing everything that's around you, and it continuously influencing everything. And the way your feelings the feeling is vibrating out. See, there's so many things that are happening on every single level. And no matter how somebody wants to look at it, they can look at it in just a materialistic and go, she's being a good example. Great. But then if we look at it energetic, the vibrations that's coming out of her is changing everything around.
Yeah, because we're rising above the collective frequency. Yes. I'm vibrating this. And then again, this is why we call in the most epic, amazing beings and experience. I told you guys how I got this space, this huge, this beautiful space, right? And I was like, well, I don't really need a whole extra floor upstairs that I don't even use and all these bedrooms. But this is what, like, the universe was like, this is the best space for you to be supported. What dropped in was I had 2 VIP experiences that wanted to come be with me in Bali that produced 30 to 50 grand. Just like that. It was like, does it pay for itself? Yes, it does. By me choosing, I'm worthy of the energy that supports me. So being that vibration, it effortlessly comes into the field. That's why we receive so much more. So the most that people can get, that you manifest always, you'll always receive what you're vibrating. And what you're vibrating is that there's energy in a thought. There's energy in what you're perceiving and projecting out. There's energy in the words that you're using. There's energy in what you're feeling. If those aren't a vibration of acceptance, love, joy, if they're not going to give you what you want, see, this is where we get to call ourselves on our own bullshit and look at, if we're not going towards what we want, we're in some sort of story, validation, or excuse as to why we can't have it. And I'll say that again, if you're not moving towards what you want, even the micro alignment, you're stuck in I can't, because a story, an excuse, or validation that is running your world. And that is what's vibrating, and you only continue to receive it. So how we both align to flow, for me, it was micro alignments, catching and witnessing the thought, oh, wow, interesting. Where did that come from? What is that going to get me? And then being able to go, oh, but this is what I want over here. So how do I get to align my actions, my behaviors, my ideas, my beliefs, the being that I'm being to that, to align to being in that. And so it is such a misconception in our society that we're operating from the masculine, the structure, the think it through, versus what am I feeling? You know, what am I creating by the energy that I'm being, by the vibration that I am, and starting to understand that when I'm in flow, I create so much more. Life is so easy. It is so liberating. I receive everything that I want because I'm vibrating this energy, and everything is energy. I love, it's Joe Dispenza who says, I think it's like us, our beings are 0.0, what is it? Like 0.00001% matter and 0.99.99999% energy.
Yes.
Everything is energy. And so it's like, how can I see as normal that flow is my norm? Peace is my natural state. I always say peace is my priority because when I'm in peace, there's no fucking struggle. Yeah. Like I'm in freedom, I'm in liberation, I'm in prosperity. If anything isn't, I'm not at peace with something, it's just showing me what story still exists within me, what I have resistance to, where I'm creating separation or suffering that I get to witness and clean up so that I can now come to peace with that experience that I did, that past story, the person in front of me that's triggering me or reflecting anything, that I continue to align micro alignments in the subtleties that I find to being a peaceful being, to being unconditional divine love and unconditional acceptance for myself and others. That is now my life is just, I'm in ease. Like you and I, we haven't been sick for years upon years upon years, right? We don't get sick. It's like because we're in the ease of life. So think of it as a river. And it's like most people are swimming upstream, right? In the fight, the struggle, I have to, I should. That's what you're doing in your life when you're operating out of flow. When you're in flow, what happens? We just let go and we surrender, we let the river take us down. It just flows and we dance around the rocks, the boulders, we flow around it all and we end up out and we direct it to this grand lake and this whole other thing and view and experience that we would have never even known because we're, I gotta swim upstream because everyone's going that way and I think I have to go that way so I'm enough and da 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 da. And when we see it for what it is, it's such a whoa, oh my God, I can see how I was creating my own suffering and my own struggle. And if I just let go and allow each thing to now be a teacher for me, to find what gets to now align to flow and ease, my life can become flow and ease. And what I want people to hear, this is our norm.
Yes.
This is our norm, relax in the body. And so
the biggest thing with flow, the simplest thing I find is somebody has to feel good.
Yeah.
That's like the most simplest way that I can think about how to be in flow.
Yeah.
Somebody has to feel good.
Yeah.
When somebody is feeling good, what that means is their mind can start to relax more. Because what happens is when somebody feels good, their body is more peaceful, their energy is more calm, and their mind is more calm. And automatically the chatter starts to lessen down. So when we start to dive into it, to look into it a little more detailed, there's different levels of consciousness. And the level that we're talking about to where somebody's in flow is what they call level 3, having life happen through me. And so our friend Andrew, we're talking about this, and I heard it before and I never dived into it until recently. I started looking into it, and there's 4 levels. First level is life happens to me. And those are the people that are saying, man, I feel like a victim.
I actually think there's life happens as me is first, because as me is I'm a baby. And I'm like, ooh, I'm in discovery. It's the moment we go
is 4th.
The creation and the creator one. But there's one, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like, as a child, again, we're born to be like, life is happening. It's another way of as me. Life happens as I'm in discovery. Then we start to get taught. And we become life happens to me, which is the victim mentality, right? Which
like as someone who goes through their lives as their life cycle. And because when they're babies, they don't think things are happening to them. It's almost
their natural state of life happens as me. As a child, they're like, ooh, what happens when I do this? What happens when I play with that? Do I like that?
Mental construct of themselves.
And the moment we get the mental construct, it's life happens to me. All of a sudden, I'm a victim. Go there, sit down, be quiet, etc. And we start to take on like, oh, and life is happening to me. This is that luck mentality. This is that like I'm a victim to life.
And naturally it happens because somebody is being taken care of by their parents.
Exactly.
They don't have any power. They can't really change much. So it's just something they have to go through.
And I think a lot of people stay stuck in that until they choose to become aware, and then it's life happens as me. I'm a creator of my world. I'm the source of my own experience.
Life happens by me.
By me, there you go.
But those are the people that are like, okay, I'm going to go and start working hard. I'm going to start controlling and creating my life. And I'm going to create it consciously. And there are so many entrepreneurs, so many successful people that are in this stage. And on the outside, it's like they are doing so well. Everything is happening. But then when you start to get into their personal life, you start to actually become their friend, you start to hear, they've got a lot of struggles. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of work, while they are doing a lot of things. But it's hard. It's hard. It's tiring.
It's where you were
draining.
at. You were still a creator of your world. You were an entrepreneur. You were making things happen. But see, we're still operating from a place of like, I have to do this. I have to control this. Exactly.
Force.
And the next level, what you're talking about,
then
where flow exists.
Life happens through me. And that goes from this fear-based, ego-driven type of consciousness. I have to make this happen. To now, people in this space, they think they understand that they aren't the one that is controlling all the things around in their life. They have to take action, so they're not sitting back. It's not this idea of law of attraction, I'm going to sit back and let things just drop in my lap. No, you have to grab things, you have to do things, but you don't have to control all the moving pieces that are happening around you. Just realize that things will happen the way it happens. You don't have to worry about things. Things will naturally happen the way that it needs to happen. And we have a higher purpose, and we're here as part of this whole. It's not just my life. I am part of this entire symphony of life. And there's this level of like trust and level of faith. And now we stop controlling everything. We control some things.
Is controlling us. Again, that fear-based.
We just let people be, and somebody is aligned with us, they'll naturally gravitate, and somebody isn't aligned, they'll naturally go.
They naturally go, you too much, Mike Chang. You too much. I'm out.
Okay,
no thank
problem.
You. Love you.
Go over there. It's okay. Maybe next year we
Rejection
can swing back
equals
around.
Protection is what I always say. It's just they're not ready for your space, and that's okay.
And that's like the flow. That's where flow actually really takes place and starts to happen, And people can stay in this stage and they will be so happy. But there is a higher stage.
So I see it as every act in front of us, everything that's happening, every interaction is for a reason. When we see it as, again, the universe, the divine, life, again, I feel like to move into this place, we get to learn to trust the process of life. So when we come from the place of the creator, we're like, okay, I have to force this. I'm thinking it through. I'm trying to control still. And when we realize, actually, the greater good, you can call it whatever you want to call it, the divine, universe, etc., they have all the infinite possibilities available. Literally, and when we know that when we speak out a word, when in deep depths of medicine, I've opened up my multidimensional capabilities where I can see the quantum field and it looks like a spider web. And I realized it was huge for me to go, whoa, when I speak something, I can see how the energy goes poof, or a thought, and it literally goes whoosh, all over the planet. And the universe, so when we're like, ooh, like, again, feeling good, choosing, like the universe sees the infinite possibilities. Like when we let go and surrender to the flow, the energy is taking me here. Instead of me fighting to go upstream, I relax into the flow that the energy of the universe is saying, go this way, let go and go this way. And it takes me to a place that I could have never seen when I was trying to control it from my human mind that only has the construct of consciousness, the reference points, etc. that I have, until I'm willing to let more things drop in and so it's like, for me, that was so empowering to go, I can understand now that when I, from my mental brain, again, mental mindset, logic that doesn't exist because all things are true based on the logic you're looking for. When I'm just trying to control through this, I have such an inkling of my energy operating. I have such an inkling of accepting. And this is when I feel like the world comes around and either bitch slaps you when you're not paying attention. Andrew was talking about that today. He's like, it's like the universe is recycling for you where you're called to go. And it keeps bringing these things forth to you. When you keep ignoring it, just the energy gets stronger until you get that bitch slap where life happens. You're like, the energy, it's resistance this way. I gotta go this way. And we actually allow that. So for me, it made more sense to go, whoa, that is how I trust the process of life. And I know really the truth is my highest true self, my guides, my angels, we created every single interaction of this life experience for my greatest, highest good. So everything that comes into my space is what I chose and created, what was chosen and created for me for what I get to learn and evolve through so that I can have more ease, more bliss, more flow, return even more to my divinity, my remembrance, and my natural state of being. So it no longer is when I realized I was like, this is what's coming through. This is what's wanting to come through. This is where the energy is going. These are the things popping up into my field. And when we dance with that, like we've talked about our life experience where I was like, I feel like I'll be here in Bali till the end of August. And then I had this gorgeous place that I found. And literally the day I was supposed to sign contracts, the owner says, no, I'm not going to give her the place because he didn't want to wait for someone to take it that long. And then that day I found out I got access to go to Peru for this thing. And it was like, no wonder that. The universe said, so if my mind would have been like, no, I'm going to try for this thing and stay in Bali. But then the universe directed that the energy actually is over here. And so when I'm willing to let go and surrender my mindset of trying or forcing things or controlling things, and I go, ooh, okay, oh, all this opened up over here. Then I had Egypt show up, where I get to go to Egypt, and it was all set up for me with ease and grace. It's like, oh, okay, then I get to flow here. And it's like, I would have never even seen Egypt in the field coming up. I would have never even seen or planned out what the possibilities were for me in Peru, what's coming up for these adventures and initiations for me. I literally just followed the energy. The universe said, not over here, go this way. And so when we allow the flow of life and the ease that life can be, when we go with the direction, but see, most people are like still operating from I think I have to figure it out and know what's going to come. And there's this trust that happens.
That feeling when they think that. That feeling is of worry.
Yeah.
The feeling is
it's coming from a scared, smaller self that says, I have to know what's going to happen because control makes me feel safe. And what I shifted that to, I realized my old ways of being was I had to be certain. Now I fucking live off of uncertainty. I love uncertainty. That would have scared the fuck out of me before. Like uncertainty was like scary because uncertainty meant I didn't know how I was going to look, and I didn't know if I was going to be rejected or if I was going to be, all those things were uncertainty. I had to control. And the more I realized, I actually just shifted the feeling again. Like we're talking about, the uncertainty was adventure. Like life is bringing and I speak it constantly. If you follow me on Facebook, etc., I'm always talking about the life is my grandest adventure and the universe brings me my grandest adventure. Like this is my grandest adventure. And so it's like uncertainty became excitement, joy, gifts, love, freedom. Oh, I'm so excited to see what's next.
People listening to this, they may think like, does that mean that I shouldn't plan and just be totally uncertain? And I want to add this. When somebody is planning, nothing is actually wrong with planning. Yeah. But what
you can
happens,
have an intention, but it's the attachment to it.
The attachment to planning basically creates this worrisome, fearful feeling, this fearful, worried energy. Yeah. And that is the actual problem with planning. It's not the plan. It's not you sit there and you think thoroughly what you're going to do. Nothing is wrong with that. It's the energy that happens when somebody is doing that sometimes.
It's when if it has to turn out that way, you have an attachment or an expectation. But when you go, ooh, this is what when we ask the right questions, what would be the most nourishing for my soul? So as I said, this was popping into my field. It's like, ooh, that's interesting. And then the energy went there. And so when I go, ooh, this is what I'm wanting to create. Like you have this whole download. What you're offering and creating now is this flow training. It's like, so you have this come through like, ooh, this is what I'm feeling into and where it gets to go and like what's great. But when it goes, it has to go that way, that's when there's an attachment. But when we surrender to, this is my intention. Again, for me, it's like peace, freedom, love, joy. I'm going to the top of the mountain. Now I just focus on the next inch that I'm being guided to, the next step. And when we let go of the attachment that it has to be that way, we get access to what's even so much greater that we couldn't even witness and see.
Now we can skip steps. Now we can get to our goals and what we want faster. And I learned something with that book, Your Wish is Your Command, Kevin Trudeau. And I remember he explained in such an easy way. He talked about how we are here to experience life through feelings. Yeah. And no matter what things we want, the reason why we want it is because of the feeling it gives us. Yeah. So what we're saying when we let go is that this goal, this specific thing is going to make me feel that way. Yeah. We let go of that specific thing, and what we hold on to is the great feeling, that feeling of joy, of happiness, of peace. And we hold on to that. We go, I'm going to feel blissful and feel joyful and feel free. That I'm going to hold on to, and that's going to happen. How that's going to be created?
Exactly.
I'm going to let that go. Here's my plan. I think it could happen steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now I'm at step 1. It's accurate so far. I take step 2 and realize that the 3, 4, 5 isn't going to happen. It shifts into something else. And at that point, because I don't care about step 3, 4, 5, or 6 or 7. Yeah. What I care about is the feeling of freedom, feeling joy, of bliss.
Exactly.
So therefore, now we're always happy. We're always feeling great. And all the things that come into our life matches the way we feel versus holding on to specific outcomes.
Ideas, stories, attachments.
And we may not feel good from creating the outcomes that we're creating, even though we created exactly what we want.
And what you're reaffirming is being the vibration. Yes. So again, when I can go, okay, my intention is to be peace. And all of a sudden, like, okay, well, I think this thing is going to give me peace, but it's like, actually, can I create peace right now? You know that we can tune in and we can be like, how can you, if you want love, we get to give it to ourselves first. We get to be the vibration of love to attract more love. So can I be love right now?
That's a good one.
I get to be and this is why I say you manifest what you vibrate. So the big disconnect in manifesting is we're like, let me visualize it. Let me think it through. Let me see it. And I'm trying to feel this feeling saying it's outside of me, like, the car, etc. But it's like when I can be the feeling of I'm worthy and I can see abundance everywhere and everything, and I can be the vibration, that's when I attract it to me. So can we be peace now? Can we be happy now? Can we be freedom now? And so people a lot of times are like, well, I want to travel. I'm like, well, how are you traveling now? And they're like, well, I'm not. My job, and I got to save up. And I'm like, exactly. So you're vibrating that you're not worthy to travel because you have to have all these things. Mm-hmm. These are the stories and attachments. But when we go, ooh, I get to travel. I love traveling. I love the joy of like seeing new places. And now we're focusing on like that being our experience. And we're like, ooh, and so how would I get to travel now? This weekend, I'm going to go explore the city next to me. And all of a sudden, I'm giving myself permission to be worthy, and I'm being, so we are taking action. We are being, but we get to be led. We get to go the direction of where we're being led, not wait for, well, okay, traveling means I've got to build my business and have all this kind of money, and this has to happen. My kids have to grow up, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Bullshit stories, excuses, validations that are outside of us. And then it never aligns because we're not being that vibration. That is the flow state. Let's talk about, I want to go into, because obviously, there's so many aspects to flow. We could talk, I don't even know how long we've already gone, but we could talk for hours. And I feel like we've definitely covered mindset, beliefs, operating patterns, behaviors. Let's shift into we know Stealing Fire is a great book for teaching how, like the study of flow state. Yeah. You said today it takes high skill and
high challenge.
High challenge. And so it talks about like surfers or people like when they're in that moment of like time dissipates. Mm. I teach a lot of clients when people come and do VIP with me. I'm like, I live in like today alone, everything that we've done today, like when we were rafting, all the things that we do, it feels like a month. It feels like a week. Like I live in a state of timelessness.
Yes.
There's just like moment by moment of what feels good. And we're just in flow of the dance and the play. There is no such thing as time. So again, we can create so much more. So even in Stealing Fire, if anyone wants to really dive into flow state, that's a great reference point. Mm-hmm. But it's like talks about psychedelics, plant medicines, all these things that open up our neural pathways, that relax our system, that help heal everything in our bodies, that we're operating at a vibration of more ease and more flow and, all that. Now, I want to go into what you've dived into and the discovery of the body with the tension versus the relax and bringing in the breath and the movement. Like we talked about before, not just going from, okay, let me try to change this thought. Let me actually move the energy and create flow from my feeling. And will you dive into like how that all evolved for you, that you left six-pack shortcuts and you dove into consciousness, plant medicines, all these things that allowed you to go, what's actually feeling in my body and creating this, to then now you're living in flow. And now you're creating flow training movement and all these things. So let's go into the direction of the body and what's actually happening when we're not, when we're doing the things that we're trained to do, even from our standpoint of like, how do we look good? How do we take care of it? Like where we were operating from our bodies before is completely different than how we feel about our bodies and we treat our bodies and we operate with our bodies now.
So with Stealing Fire, it talks a lot about flow state and about companies like Google and the Marines and all these different large organizations spending massive amount of money to go and get people to alter their state of consciousness so they can operate and perform at the level that they want these people, that they need these people to perform at. Yeah. It takes a special person to run Google as a CEO, and it takes special people to run these black op missions to be a Marine. You know,
and I just want to add, why would they spend so much money to have people get to a state of flow? Because they operate at such a higher level of vibration and productivity that they create so much more for the company.
Yes. And they are able to fit in with the rest of the group. And just like animals, when you look at a group of fish, there's no one leader fish that's leading a whole thousands of fish to just move one direction, or birds or deer. People may think that, but that's not the case. When there's a collective, and when there is a majority of people are going towards one direction, or a majority of animals going towards one direction, they all flow towards that direction. See, like they talked about in SEAL training, to where when they're in a mission, it's not just whoever is a leader is making decisions. whoever knows what to do next is now the leader. And so the leader is constantly changing. And so in order for this to happen, they all have to sink into a certain level of consciousness to where they aren't looking at it as myself and this team. There is only team. I am part of this team. There's no I anymore. It's only just team and mission. And so they all can work collectively together. Yeah. And so listening to this book, like I just started reading it, is like right now my favorite book because it just summarized all these things that I've been studying, and they've done so much research, Stephen and Jamie on this, and these guys are awesome. Yep. And actually I met one of them at the Utah event, But anyway, so going back into flow state though, so I found that there are a lot of different ways to get into flow. Psychedelics is so good for letting people experience
a reference point.
How it's like, create that reference point. Let them know that there is a different state of consciousness that a person can operate at to where they feel good, their mind is totally expansive, they are totally not themselves, and they are somebody else that is able to create a life that they want. Yeah. And it allows them to experience it really, really quickly without doing much work at all.
Source consciousness connection.
Yes, source consciousness connection. The downfall about psychedelics and all the plant medicines is it's not something that somebody can use constantly every day to maintain that level of consciousness. There is an effect, just like with taking anything else. And so when I was taking psychedelics and I would experiment it, I would get these shifts, and then afterwards I would try to hold on to this perspectives, hold on to these thoughts. And over every day from the day that I would take something, the thoughts will start to lessen, and I can feel it going down to where now I'm back to, quote, normal. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be another way. And I started to test out with different types of methods like breathing and different yoga asanas and with different meditations and different movements to try to create the same effect. And over time, I took the teachings and the learnings I found in yoga, qigong, and breath work and massage and resistance training.
Energy releasing too. I feel like you definitely incorporated.
And bioenergetic grounding and energy releasing. I studied religion. I studied a little Scientology of what Ron Hubbard talks about, and his method. There's a specific name for his method, clearing. He talks about it as clearing. I started learning about EFT and all of these things. And I started to look to see how I can use the methods to apply to create this altered state of consciousness that I'm getting from psychedelics.
And you actually integrated it. So this is the difference between when people take psychedelics or plant medicine and they don't integrate the new level of feeling, vibration, consciousness into life. That's why integration is so important. Otherwise, you're just using psychedelics or plant medicines just like someone would use alcohol or food to sabotage. It's just a distraction. Fun. So there's the shadow side and there's the light side that activates and awakens your DNA. So you got activated to like, oh, this is a higher level of consciousness. Now, how do I integrate the behaviors, the patterns, the thoughts that align to this to continue to be the flow state and operate from flow state more often?
Yes. Yeah. And over time, what I found is I would do a practice that would be over 3 hours long. Yeah. And that was just the practice. But then I'll spend the rest of the day either reading or tinkering with all these different things. Like I would do practices to where I would almost faint. And I would repeat it over and over and over and realize, okay, if I go ahead and do 40 breaths, I would faint. If I only do 20, I won't. I would only be dizzy. And if I do 10, nothing happens. I would do these. I would hack myself in all these different ways. Or if I do it when I smoke marijuana, this would happen. If I do it when I take mushrooms, this would happen. And I would play and do all these things. And over time, I found that if I take certain things that worked really, really well and stripped away all the things that are either hard to do, that didn't create the massive results, and I would only look for things that were simple to do, create a lot of results, and I could do it anywhere, anytime. And here's an important thing. It didn't create negative effects. It creates positive effects in the long run. Because taking psychedelics has changed my life But every time I take it, there are effects of I need recovery time. Yeah. It's not I just jump back up.
You do some massive energy working and activation.
There's some training. I need to recoup myself. Yeah. And so therefore I realized it's only, like you said, a reference point to let me know this is what the possibilities of consciousness can be like. But I need to do the work to actually maintain and get there.
Integrate it to be the way that you be.
And what I showed this morning was basically... Over the last 2 years, I've been working on a routine, working on all these different moves and trying to find the best ones and strip away everything and condense it down as much as I can. Yeah. And now this one I found, number one, alters the state of consciousness by relaxing the body, by getting the body to literally let go of stress, let go of tension, let go of all these things so energy can flow. And when energy flows really well, the mind can also flow and think in a calm way, just like the way the body feels. If the body feels strong, the mind can think strong. If the body is really still, the mind is still. That's how we stop
And if the body's stressed, you're acting out of stress. I love that, like, see, this is the norm, is to actually release the tension. And see, as you pointed out before, it's like the way we both worked out before. It was like time under tension, lifting weights, and like very structural. And there's tons of parts of our bodies that we're not even using and accessing every day and being able to move with and create that flow with. So it's like such a shift of, oh, I've got to, like, for me, I was like, the next level I was being called forth to with the body was like, oh, there's the next level of like, how do I allow myself to get out of just the conformed movements? And it's like going to ecstatic dance. We were talking about this, like, it's just like, woo, like all these movements in every way moving our body. And again, going back to like when we were a child and we could just move and express and release the tension, move in all the ways.
Yeah, because the tension is like the foundational representation of stress and fear is tension. And so instead
contraction, that's why when we feel fear, we contract versus breathe and move it and expand and move through that comfort
And that's like the challenge about weightlifting is like we are creating a lot of tension. And that's good for looking good and tearing the muscle and building it back up. But where is the part about relaxation and release? And I realized that both of them needs to happen. So this way we get the best of all worlds instead of just looking good, but not feeling good at all. And what I found is that if I could find a way to go ahead and condense it down, not have it to be 3 hours or something, but have it to be short enough to where not only does it makes the body feel good and raises the energetic frequency, but the body can actually look good. And so that's why when we did those 24 minutes, it was only 24 minutes, but it was
so good.
It was tough.
And this is the thing, though. What I love is that there's such a different experience in that, like, we start off with like literally bouncing and shaking and relaxing the body and doing all these ways of just flow and ease and realizing, whoa, that is such a workout. And because we're using in the simplest things and we're using the muscles and things that we didn't use, but it's so different than the idea and the mentality of, okay, I'm going to go in the gym and I'm going to lift the weights. Like you said, you just be like, all right, fuck, I get to do this. I'm going to leg press today. And it's like, okay, I got to do my squats. And it's like, okay, I got to do the weight. And it's structural and it's forced. And there's still this feeling of, it's such a lower vibrational feeling than what we were creating, which is like, I actually get to relax and release and move and
doing
feel my
so
body.
Many things at one time, you know, all at once. Like we're loosening up the body, we're grounding the energy, we're doing breath work while we're increasing mobility in all the major parts of our body, all within like one movement. And each movement is doing that. And then we will do like 15 or 18 movements in part one. And every one of the movements is creating either all of those things or at least one or two of those aspects.
Plus your energy releasing. Like every day I tell people, I mean, part of my morning routine is energy releasing. As I tap in and tune in during the day, it's like, is there anything in my body that gets to be cleansed and cleared? Like even if you have an experience with someone and it felt heavy, you can walk away and be like, you know, like shake that out. And it's like, you're literally doing so much to just cleanse and clear the body, to feel your system. It just, to me, was so powerful. Like this is our divine natural state of movement. This is our divine natural state of breath. This is our divine natural state of connection and being connected to our bodies and feeling all things. And even the stuff that you did with like touching the face and opening up the channels in the nose and the ears and the eyes. I was like, we don't ever like use all this and feel all this. And so to me, it was so powerful to be like, this is that.
We don't take care of our eyes and mouth and ears, but yet we depend on it.
When we did the mouth thing, like, so we were moving our tongue through our mouth. I was like, my jaw was like, oh my gosh, I obviously have not used these muscles that much, or even, and it's, so you think about even,
but yet it's like, it's our time.
Continuing to create,
you know?
Continuing to create flexibility in our bodies and being aligned to like, I talk to my DNA and my cells to be like, I'm younger every day. Every day I'm regenerating. My cells I continue to attune my body to being a level of light that my body actually requires less sleep, less food, etc. I'm literally operating from a place of higher vibration of light. And yet there's all these other elements of how we get to activate all the parts that we are and that we just never use. And I'm like, oh, this is what we forgot to do. It was beautiful for me to like have you put all those pieces together of all the things we've studied, Qigong, breath work, energy releasing, etc. And to feel, and I loved, I mean, we obviously, I'm sure there's a way that you know, for anyone interested in this that can tune into the ways that you're sharing this, but it's like any level of person could do this. Yeah. And I was like, being a global citizen, I can do this anywhere, because it's been like, oh, yay, nice. I have a gym, access to a gym here in Bali. But for the most time, I told you, I'm in an ashram in India. I'm on a mountaintop. I'm in all these places, and I've always just had my bands, and I do my little high intensities, my stuff. And I was feeling like there's something else that gets to be like my body moving in different ways.
Your body is thriving for more.
Was craving more. And that's why I love ecstatic dance. And ecstatic dance became a part of my everyday morning practice. It's like I do my chanting, and then I would turn on some music and just like let it all fly, like let it all move.
That was a big inspiration for me, was ecstatic dance. In my mind, I was thinking, you know what? If people did ecstatic dance every morning for like an hour.
I love it. I feel like, oh.
It would just feel so awesome.
And now I have your format that you gave me was powerful for me. And this is just to go, you guys, to see that it's not just, there's the mindset, but there's also tuning into how we get to operate from a place that our body is in flow. This is receiving the feminine. The feminine is the flow, the receiving. The masculine through inspired action. That's where it's in alignment. Not the masculine, I have to force, try, struggle that we've been taught to operate it from. It's actually, ooh, this would feel good. I receive it in the feminine. Ooh, this idea came down through me and this would feel good and this would be the most nourishing. Oh, how would that get to, through inspired action, I now take action. I follow that energy and I implement that, which is what you did as you, again, walked away from something that was holding you in a place of limitation. And you went down a journey of discovering your own consciousness, your own freedom, your own flow, the ways that you could operate every day to feel good. And you evolved to discovering all these ways that can allow us to be living in flow state even at a greater degree. Just putting these together. So I'm super in awe by it. I love it all.
And also be able to use flow state to get into flow, but use it for business, use it for relationships. Right. And now what I'm doing is I'm getting back into business now. I've taken 4 years off from not working. And
because your next level of what was calling you forth, you've done the work. You're like, your last 2 years I've been in discovery and I've been curious and I've been studying and I'm in this and got me questioning this. And it's like your journey, which calls you forth as a leader to allow people to see what else is possible. So you're operating at a next level of ooh, this is actually the next level of working with my body, working with flow, working with my vessel. You're such a gift for that now we go, oh, thank you for that. And so it's like you've been in discovery of this to then now you're passionate about sharing this and it's coming from a totally different place. I love watching you and witnessing you with it.
I love it. It's I don't think so much about the business aspect, more of I let the fuel of passion and creativity and how to make it so this way it can help more people, how to tinker with it. And I get totally geeked out and all the different moving parts. And I find that if I focus on that, what it will do is it will give people more value. It will help people more. How do I make it easier? How do I make it so this way everybody can do it? How do I make it so this way?
It's coming from a place of service, which service gives you your dharma, your passion. And when you're in service, again, with what lights you up, you're more fulfilled and it just continues to spiral. But I love witnessing you in this place where, again, it's you're just enjoying what you do. You're just loving sharing this. And so it's the business just comes from effortlessly and ooh, this is what would feel good. And as we had discussion today about all the ways that this can operate, it's ooh, this is what would feel good. And it's not coming from how you were operating or building a business before, which got to tank because it was, again, a fear-based scarcity, energy, fight, struggle,
lot of resistance,
etc. And the life that you're living is such a testament to letting go of anything that's resistance and surrender. Again, life led you a different way to now discover and be in this place where you're just fulfilled and you're passionate and you're doing it out of love. It's such a different experience.
And so fun. It makes it so enjoyable,
Is there any other last tidbits you would love to share with people around what your experience is of living in flow now and why that's been such a big shift for you to be literally what you're sharing as your passion now.
I would say when somebody is in a place to where they feel there's a lot of struggle, there seem to be a lot of obstacles, in their life. Instead of trying to fix those obstacles, instead of trying to spend their energy constantly fixing obstacles, constantly trying to patch up everything, know that it's necessary. It's not about forgetting about it.
Thank you for that.
But it's about putting your priority to yourself.
Yes.
And knowing that if you are operating at a higher frequency, if you are in a better place, every single thing that you do, the solutions that you do, the talks that you need to have, the actions that you need to do, they're all going to perform better. And so therefore, do what you need to do to make yourself feel better.
The highest priority.
When we talk about energetic frequency, I feel that sometimes people listening to it might go, well, how do I know if I'm in a high frequency? And if you feel good.
You feel good.
If you
That's
feel
high
good.
Vibration. If you don't feel good.
The chances are your frequency is vibrating high. And how do you get it higher? Feel better.
Yeah.
And how do you know when your frequency is low? You don't feel that good. Your body
heavy
feels
versus light.
heavy.
Yep.
Yes, your
Heavy
body
versus
feels
light.
heavy. Your body feels really stiff.
Yep.
It literally feels at dis-ease. It feels painful.
Disconnected, etc.
And so, especially if you're making big decisions, do not make a big decision if you aren't feeling good. Because whatever decision you're going to make is coming from a place of not good.
Yep.
Feel good first and then make that big decision. And that would be the best thing. I'll leave links or a video where people can watch it. They can go to my Instagram or they can go to my YouTube channel and just type in Mike Chang and you can find it there. And you can either do this practice or you can do another practice. I know that there are so many ways out there that people can feel good, but the important thing is to have the information that feeling good is more than just the fact of feeling good. Feeling good is going to create everything in your life that you've ever wanted, and it roots from feeling good.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you said, know that everything in front of you is necessary, meaning like it's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's like we get to see what we're feeling so that we can choose as divine sovereign creators what would allow me to feel good. And there's many ways up the mountaintop. Like you said, like you studied all these things, none of this stuff, all truth is truth. Truth is out there everywhere. But when we can go, okay, I'm going to take, like, it might be just learning the first section of your flow training, which is just like energy shaking and releasing that. And can I just practice that every day? And can I practice catching and witnessing and knowing this is our biggest thing. We want you to hear that flow is your natural state.
Yes.
Flow, you are designed to feel good. You were designed to operate from bliss and ease and grace and love as our natural state. All the other stuff that doesn't feel good is the lies that are creating our own suffering and our own limitations. And the more of us that can stand in that truth and be the example of flow and the example of choosing this and the example of being this, like you said, we just attract, the more of us go, oh wait, I can actually choose to feel good and build a business and do what feels good and give myself permission to be honored and know that my journey and what I want to create gives me the most light and joy. I mean, to witness you from where I first met you and what you were doing in that story, it's like you are such a light being, and just being that vibration on the planet is what creates so much more. But you don't even have to try because it's all coming to you because you're just choosing to feel good. So hopefully people hearing to feel good. How would I get to feel good? And even when you feel good, it's like, oh, and how could I feel even greater? Like, ooh, what else would I love? Like, how else can this? So it's like, there's so much things that we both teach to access this, but it's like hear and know, it's a power of choice.
And one more thing about feeling good is some people, they're a dancer. And so if they dance, they feel good. Somebody's a rock climber. If they go climb some rocks, they're loving it. And somebody might be a painter. I'm a firm believer that we all have something really special and unique in every one of us. And our backgrounds and our expressions are all diverse. And
how boring would it be if we were all the same? Why are we all trying to be the same again? How boring.
And if you like dancing, you like painting, you like rock climbing, you like running, you like doing something that makes you feel good, you like jamming to music, you're a DJ, whatever it is, spend as much time as you can doing that. And sometimes there's activities that you love doing, but you don't have the opportunity to do it all the time. And so that's when something like flow training can really help.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because I realized
practices that give you that alignment.
That's why I created it to make sure that they
yeah.
can do it anytime, anywhere, in any space. You don't even need a lot of space to do this. You don't need anything, and you can.
And now we've got a video from this morning to prove and evidence how fun that was.
You know, and I wanted to make sure that what I'm saying, in other words, if somebody's a dancer and they go, so do I need to do flow training in order to get my vibration up? I would tell them, how often do you dance? They go, all the time. I go, and I will tell them, don't worry about flow training.
Dance.
You go dance, girl. You go dance, man.
Or boy.
And
dance, brother, sister,
dancing, right?
dance. Yeah.
And see, it's just about being able to do it as often as possible. I recommend people to do movements, take care of yourself on a daily basis, because there are so many things in people's lives that are bringing your energy down, and you need to.
You got to be the
offset
highest
it.
priority.
You got to be the highest priority and offset that by doing things that raises your energy up.
And what actually happens is you change that, because when you make yourself the highest priority, you train other people how to treat you by how you treat yourself.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, it no longer is like, okay, I have to, it becomes that vibration like you talk about that emulates into everything. It changes your entire world and being. So I love that, like, our whole entire message is you get to create your own flow. What will give you flow? How can I choose more flow in whatever you're experiencing, in my job, in my this? How do I just take an inch at a time to give myself permission to more flow? Whether it be looking at, as we talked about, the mindset, the thoughts, the stories, the beliefs, whether it be the movement, the breath, giving yourself the opportunity to play and expression and dance and curiosity, to move and to feel a higher level vibration. But that is our liberation. Us being in flow is our freedom. It's what we're worthy of.
Yes, absolutely right.
Thank you so much, my friend.
You.
I love you so much.
I love you.
So in love with you. So in love with me. I love us. It's so fun to dance and play with you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story and being
Marci.
such a beautiful example of just what you are and flowing with life. It's epic for me to witness.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for the Awakened Being Conversations to Create Change. Definitely tune into what Mike has to offer. I know we'll have a video out there somewhere from our play today and just all the things that you share. You're just such an epic individual of sharing and just implementing something. The whole point here is integrate and implement something in your life now that you're practicing to create more flow. Moment by moment, micro alignment, and you get to, it becomes your norm. Flow is our norm.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, my friends, for joining me for another amazing conversation to create change. To allow that change to take place, please integrate the tools so that you can really receive the change into your life. And I invite you to join us for even more in the Best Life Tribe and continue on your path and your journey. And remember who you really are, a divine being that is already whole, already worthy, completely deserving, and fully capable to now claim and live the life you love.